It's the state of the dungeon. It's a video that Rob does about his games. Yeah! Hello friends, I am Rob and I'm here for another State of the Dungeon address. This one for the game that took place on the 22nd of April 2021. The game was Mighty Protectors. All players were in attendance, including Muscles. Everybody was healthy, everybody was there, it was great. So we started off basically tailing off where we had left off the previous session, with the group in the garage, parking garage, outside of the convention, where Veronica was giving several of the players new power armor because birthdays happened and I give in-game birthday gifts. So now everybody in the group, except for Muscles, who has not had his birthday yet, has power armor. They are all nice suits of power armor that give them extra levels of personal protection. And all of them have some sort of a small suite of standard abilities and also the ability to use all of their powers unencumbered by the suits. And some little boost to their powers too, allowing them to do them in a different way or combine different things, or enough to give them about 15 points worth of abilities or cover for disadvantages or things like that. Some of them were a little more extravagant, but they are very limited in what they can use them for. So if anybody was curious, most of them choose not to wear the suits yet because they aren't in really thick combat, so they're going to pare down the wow factor until they're actually ready to spring them on in an actual mission, which is probably pretty smart. Yeah, they look cool. So at any rate, they have their armor. They talk to Veronica, who again told them, keep your eyes open. There's a lot of strange things going around. I have not yet been able to find anything regarding where Doorman went to. So you guys stick together. Keep your eyes on each other. Don't let anybody go off alone. And, we'll get to the bottom of this. They asked a few questions. Nothing really earth-shattering came out, but they went off to, well, first of all, go eat, because some of them have been through quite a bit already. But also for them, there was an event coming up. Mr. Universe was going to have a lecture on Nemesis and their natures. So the idea was they all wanted to be there because obviously this was very important. Some of them have met their Nemesi. Others had not and were curious about, does everybody have one, and so on. So they went to eat. They went and they picked a very, very traditional German restaurant where basically they're rock stars because they bought all their food. Quite honestly, when you have somebody with a 25,000 calorie a day diet, Muscles is, eating for about 15 people. So they pretty much wiped out everything they could cook, which is a challenge, but they carted away a lot of food. So they get back to the convention center. They get back to the actual lecture hall, which only has 70 people, which has about the 50 or so promised of the gifted there, with a few notable exceptions, including Respite, the young gal who's a healer. But lots of gifted are here, and some out-of-towners too, who weren't at the convention from a standpoint of being one of the spectacles. They all got their various places. A couple of them who have body challenges, like Muscles had his own special chair up near the front. But they all settle down, and all of these gifted are in one room. Some of them are chit-chatting. Clearly there's been networking going on. The group chose to stay kind of aloof and keep an eye on what was going on. And Mr. Universe comes out. Now, Mr. Universe revealed the Nemesis. And they already knew some of this, but for the factual information, a Nemesis is created after each of the gifted gets their powers. A Nemesis is chosen that will have powers that complement but countermand the powers of the gifted, and to a certain extent vice versa. They are weak to something of each other, and they are strong against most of the things that the gifted can do. So it's not as easy as just hitting them with the same old, same old. It should be a challenge facing your nemesis. Also, getting your gifts, or possibly getting your gifts because someone else was chosen and you are their nemesis, possibly, you have a programmed internal rage. If you see your nemesis, you want them dead. You have no choice. It's something that everybody has. Not uncontrollable, but it's a strong impulse that many won't be able to counter. And you also have some semblance of a sense of if your nemesis is close by, you'll start getting a feel for it. And the likeness was put that, it's similar to the position of the Highlanders in the movie Highlander. Or, they aren't Highlanders, they're the Immortals. But the condition that only they can kill each other by chopping off the head or whatever. They get a sense when another one is around, which is a cue to be ready to fight and defend yourself. And also, in the comparison, if you destroy your nemesis, you gain a measure of their powers. And you don't have a nemesis anymore, so win. A couple have already done this. But you cannot cheese your way through that encounter. You can't have friends standing around who put your nemesis at a disadvantage. It has to be your actions that do it, and you alone. Otherwise, circumstances will occur that will cause the nemesis to slip out of your grasp, even if it has to be as gauche as them just teleporting away before the death blow comes down. So there is that. There's not really as much of a worry that one person is going to be ganged up on by 10 and left to the mercy of their nemesis. That's not going to happen. Apparently, the gifters still keep tabs on everybody who's got a gift and all of their nemesis to make sure that this great cosmic game that they're playing plays out in a certain way. It was actually presented by Muscles or Rook?
Oh, yeah.
One of them posted, so what about you and your nemesis to Mr. Universe? And he's like,
that was Muscles.
Muscles, yes. And he's like, my nemesis is no longer. I was thrown into a confrontation with him, and I survived, and he didn't. And that's how I know a lot of this stuff firsthand, which is why I'm sharing it with you now. But generally, the character of the person who is Mr. Universe, despite the name, the guy looks like everybody's favorite grandpa librarian. He's not an imposing figure. He dresses in tweed suits. He's a little out of shape. But he has amazing powers, which have never been really defined by anybody that they've seen so far, outside of the ability to instantly send somebody someplace if they cross him. And he doesn't need to touch them to do that. He can just whisk a person away. Possibly across the globe. So that alone is a pretty impressive power. He might have more. But he's pretty well respected with the group. And he said, and he reached out to everyone, and he said, look. We are not animals. We all are given a gift that we can use to make humanity better. Some in some ways, some in other ways. But if we use this as a gladiatorial combat, you are not forced against your nemesis. Circumstances will keep popping up. You'll keep meeting your nemesis, and that can't be helped. That's through outside intervention that's going to keep trying to get you to get into a conflict. But you can walk away, or fly away, do whatever you have to. Hopefully your nemesis will allow you to, but you never have to kill them. And perhaps working towards an arrangement, an agreement, where you don't kill each other and can then use your powers for the betterment of mankind, we can bring humanity to a new golden age. That's the idea that he put out. It gave everybody a lot to think about. The players, as well as all those different gifted that were in the room, some of them have some very deep thoughts going on. After all, about a quarter of them have already met their nemesis. And that means for the rest of them that there's somebody out there right now who is inherently programmed to kill them who has superpowers. So, yeah, that was a thing. So after this, the group kind of broke off. Several of them, taking advantage of the fact they're still at the convention, went to meet and greet to expand their relationship with people. At this point, Bulwark just left. Honestly, he didn't need to be there. It's not like his fame is going to be all that much enhanced by staying around, and he wanted to enjoy a little private time while he could. Good on him. The press was getting to be a little bit much. His sister, who he had brought there, wanted to stay, though. She wanted to, stick around all these superheroes, despite the fact that her brother is one. She was there. She wanted to see them. So he left her behind. No, this didn't end up horribly. Everybody who thinks that I'm a horrible monger of cliches, I did not have his sister get kidnapped or horribly abused to spur Bulwark on. That didn't happen. That's not the nature of the threats at hand or anything like that. So he went off. Eventually, though, they got a message from AI, who contacted, I believe it was Rook on his phone, and said, "Hey, have you seen your friend Extra Crispy lately?" And they all went, "We haven't. Nobody did anything with Extra Crispy. He went there because he was talking with Catapult and Pyroclast. Pyroclast, of course, also has firepower, so they were talking. Catapult is another guy who can fling things around him in different directions. Not the most, diverse powers, but, has potential for a lot of uses. And they're like, oh my gosh. Yeah, we did not say anybody was going to keep Extra Crispy around or whatever, and he must have wandered off. Okay, so they went to Techno. They're like, hey, we're missing our friend. Can you help us find him? And Techno's like, he's not in the convention. Okay, can you tell us at what point he's not in the convention? Okay, there's this window of time where he went from this frame and then he's vanished. Along with the other two, which was Pyroclast and Catapult. Oh, great, now they're taking them 3 at a time. That's wonderful. They weren't happy with this. I think it's because in a lot of the ways they like Extra Crispy. He went there to Iraq and he fought with them against an unknown assailant. And he's a pretty good kid. Got a good head on his shoulders. He's proven that he is made of pretty decent stuff, unlike some of their allies. Like the ninja. Which, by the way, the ninja is demonstrating that his power set has also been diversifying lately, even though he's been skipping on some of the training and things that Veronica and some of the others would love to put him through. He has been developing some of his different powers, especially on ones that make his life easier, including the ability to go invisible. He has learned how to do that now. Not extremely high levels of that. He's cherry-picking ninja abilities that are relatively low level to give a decent effect. So, but he's still getting by. He's got a little wall crawling going on. He has improved agility, even though his natural agility is pretty bad. So he's got a few tricks up his sleeve. He has, however, for all of the teasing and everything that he's had, he actually did end up picking up a level of experience, and he can actually raise his leg up to where he can do a decent sidekick. He's still not what anybody would consider to be a skilled martial artist, but his powers do cover him for a fair amount. Which Veronica was not happy when she found out that they had basically told him that he should go off and use himself as bait for the kidnappers. She does not think that he is fit to work in the field. They could be right in that. Veronica's a pretty good judge of character that way. And all the others don't want to see him out in the field either. That would mean he's around them. So, yeah, the ninja is truly hilarious sometimes, in a dark way. So they tried calling Veronica about the situation. Can't get a hold of her. Likewise, they also found out that Extra Crispy's phone is nowhere on the grid. Rook tried, And when Rook tries, with his communication skills, he's got a really good chance if there's any chance to sniff out anything, and nothing. Phone completely gone. Same thing with Veronica's. Could not find her anywhere in Munich or basically Germany. So that's, not good. So the next part then was going to be figuring out what kind of thing they could do that that might be able to help them. They eventually tracked it down to another gifted who showed up just at the time for the Nemesis convention. He was only there for a really small window of time, and the last time the cameras caught him, he was leaving 15 minutes after the lecture. Well, that was suspicious. Also, the guy's name, worst case scenario, is his given name. He's a probability manipulator. He demonstrated his powers for the folk at Supers who were running the show. So they did some detective work. They did more detective work than either Bat Guy or Bat Dude are able to do, which are the two former Batmen. They're working on them. They had some helpful advice to try to give them alternate Batman names like Azrael and something else. But whether or not that's going to take, we'll see. So funny. But the group started, kind of breaking it down, and they realized that if they think that this guy has something to do with the disappearances, which seems likely, he is a lone thread that doesn't make any sense in any other context. And of course, having a name like worst case scenario means that all kinds of things, like any good photo of the guy, nope, doesn't exist in their data banks. For some reason, the file got erased that had the good high-quality image. The only one they have is a pretty blurry one, which is what they used as a stub for his ID. So they used good old detective work, and even though they couldn't get a full facial image on anything, it was only a matter of time before Matt just Rook went tearing through the city and a perimeter, just scouting out any computer observation devices that might have seen this guy. And they followed a trail of him just 5 blocks away from the convention, walking out that exit where eventually he turns into a restaurant. A deli. Deli restaurant. The German delicatessen. Okay. So they follow, being ultra subtle. Only one person is in civilian clothes, and that's Bulwark. He's got out of the costume. But anytime you're with muscles, there's no hiding your group, so it's kind of hard. He's 10 feet tall and huge. But all the rest of them are still in their super garb, so yeah, it works. So they they descend upon this delicatessen. I'm going to say they descend upon it because they didn't just visit. They go in, and remember, these people have been seeing superhero costumes all day. All the people who are visiting for this thing, many of them have dressed up. Far more so of a percentage of people than even Comic-Con gets normally. So these guys have been seeing people in spandex. Some people who really shouldn't be wearing spandex, but they still, a lot of that too. But these guys come in, and they're the real deal. And it's pretty obvious. You got muscles. That's not foam rubber there. So they try to get into the place to scope it out. And subtle they are not. Their first attempt to talk to the person who's working there, to give them permission to scout around, they claim to be with the authorities, but they have no authority.
That was all.
So that doesn't work very well. At this point, Bulwark decides he's going to be subtle. He goes off to the bathrooms, which is in the back, and he finds out as he walks back there that there is a steel trap door right off of the kitchens from the main trunk hallway that goes to the back, which he can see as he goes to the bathrooms. He's like, well, that's suspicious. But, he doesn't do any terroristic threats or anything to get down there. He goes into the bathroom and goes intangible, which he can do. Sinks into the floor, which he can do. Swims through the rock. or the concrete, basically, and dirt. And he eventually gets to that trapdoor and sees that there's a tunnel descending into the ground. He emerges into the tunnel, deactivates his intangibility, and activates his flight, and floats down. Tells everybody, hey, back here in the kitchen, there's a trapdoor. Muscles is immediately on that. He's like, I need to get down to your trapdoor. And the guy's like, I can't let you go in there. You aren't the police. You don't have any authority here. You should leave. Calls a manager over. Muscles is like, I'd like to see you stop me from going back there. At this time, the player of Bulwark is just shaking his head. I don't know what he was hoping for, because there's no subtle bone in most of his party's bodies. But nope. The guy's like, you can't go down there. We're financially and legally in trouble if you get hurt on our premises, and there could be dangerous things in there. Yep, Muscles walked right by the guy. And the rest of the group followed him because what are you going to do? So it's only 4 people who were expressly told not to go through instead of all 5 of them, I guess. Well, they come to the steel trapdoor. Muscles decides, I'm going to punch it in. Bam! Funny thing, he's incredibly strong, can lift an incredible amount, but he's still hampered by the fact that he can roll really, really badly for damage. Comically so. So he rattles the door. He dents it a bit, sure. I mean, he's massive. But he doesn't rip. He finally just reaches over, grabs it, and just peels it off like shucking a clam. And sure enough, down at the very bottom of this shaft, they can see that Bulwark's got his cell phone for light, and he has already found that there is a door down here that has a force field that he can't penetrate, protecting the area around. So he tried to go through the door and couldn't. Somebody's got force fields. That's interesting. So they go down, meet up with them, and this door looks like it's a World War II bunker. I mean, it's that old. And it has been cleaned at some point, but they bricked it up, basically. They put a concrete seal around it, put lots of warnings, don't go in here. And Muscles basically made the door give up. He tried the first time punching through it again. That didn't work. And they just employed his muscles, hit it again, dented it, snapped the force field, and then he just grabbed the door and just shoved it into the frame. And exposed the next room, which is a computer room. It is a... Actually, no, it was a hallway with another one of these doors, which he then broke that door as well. But entering into a computer room, there's a couple of really decent state-of-the-art computers in here that look very important. There's a couple of other doors out of this room, one of them being another one of these large sealed doors. And another one just being a normal interior metal door with a window in it, kind of like you might see in a hospital, perhaps. So the group, at this point, unfortunately, has to split up because the players of Rook and Muscles had to leave. So they got to that point, and after that, what am I going to do? Throw the next big encounter at them at once? So I couldn't. The group did a little investigation. They looked down through the window and the door, and they saw a guy in a lab coat walking away, and he went to the far end of the hall and walked into another room. Okay. Then their computer expert, who, while he's not a hacker, he's really good with technology, and he's really, really super smart as Bulwark. So he gets into the computer. Inside the computer, he finds an amazing array of data covering people movement. Not gifted. Everybody, basically in Europe, kept track on by just about every conceivable means, mostly through the movement of their own cell phones and personal devices, but also third-party security devices, a variety of means. It is a storehouse of information on where people go, where people will be at a certain time, and where people are at the given moment. Obviously, this could be used for nefarious purposes. It could be used for completely innocuous or maybe even beneficial purposes. It would also be a data miner's dream. This is the kind of thing that gets Mark Zuckerberg all moist. So, that's something that you don't expect to find in an unused tunnel, below a delicatessen in Germany. But yeah, they find all of this stuff out. Interesting. And just at that point, the door opens. And that's where we stopped. Yeah, I love a good cliffhanger. I think it's so important in a superhero story. So those are the events that took place on the 22nd. Hopefully you enjoyed this. Stay tuned, true believers. We will be covering more and more as this story continues to unfold for the Gifter Saga of Mighty Protectors. I'm Rob. Thank you once again, and until next time, roll some dice, play some games, have fun, and stay safe. Farewell.